Hello, in this video I will show you how to implement role-based authorization in a .NET Core 5, and we will use Microsoft Identity to manage role and role operation like save role, retrieve role, and we will see different way to add a role check in a .NET Core 5, and later we will integrate this functionality in Angular. In a previous video we implemented token-based authentication. We configure Microsoft Identity for user management. I will recommend first watch this video link in the description. Now we will see authentication versus authorization. Authentication is a process in which a user provides credentials or a token that they are then compared to those stored in operating system, database, app or resource. If they match, user authenticates successfully or can then perform actions that they are authorized for during an authorization process. The authorization refers to the process that determines what a user is allowed to do. Authorization is independent from authentication. However, authorization requires an authentication mechanism. There is a different type of authorization in .NET Core 5: role-based, claim-based, policy-based. In this video, we will cover role-based authorization. Role can be assumed as a designation: admin, user, manager, employee. These roles provide certain level of access restriction. For example, an administrative user is allowed to create document library, add documents, edit documents, and delete them. A non-administrative user work with the library is only authorized to read the document. He cannot add document, edit, or delete. We can create any type of role: teacher, student, principal. It's just a string, and give access to it. In this video series we are using Microsoft Identity, and Microsoft Identity provides us many tables for user management. In a previous video we store user information in a ASP NET user table. So in order to save role in a database, we will use ASP NET role table. User can have one or many role. To save this relationship, we will use ASP NET user role table. In a .NET Core, we will use Microsoft Identity services to store these information in a database. This is the demo of application which we will create in this video. First we will create API HTTP method, then we will integrate this method in Angular application. So first we will implement user with a one role. To save user with one role, we will add role controls UI on a register page. For one role selection, we will use radio button. We will send role information with user information. We will implement restriction on access in both project Angular and .NET. In Angular, we will disable the link if user don't have access on it. Second option, we can hide the link, and then we will implement user with many roles. We will show the role information in a user table, and we will see different way to add a role check in a .NET Core 5. In a previous video, in authorize attribute, we gave JWT as a default authentication. So wherever we use this attribute, we have to give default authentication scheme. If we want to set JWT default authentication in a project, then we can add default authentication scheme in a startup file. After that, we don't need to specify default authentication scheme in attribute. In startup file, services.add authentication, in lambda expression, we will add default authentication scheme. x.default authenticate scheme, we will assign JW barrel default dot authentication scheme, default challenge scheme, and we will assign same JW barrel default dot authentication scheme. So now on, we don't need to give default authentication scheme in authorized attribute. Now test this. Open a new terminal, .NET run. Now project is running. We will test this thing on a Postman. So first we will get token from login API and copy token from here, and we implemented this token functionality in a previous video. Paste token here and send, and now you can see we are able to get data from server. And if I add some random character, and you can see unauthorized error. So it's working fine. First we will save role in a database. So we will create a first API add role, public task object, and try catch block for exception handling. I will copy this error response. We are using async task, so this method should be async method. So we have to add async before public. If we try to use await without async, this will not work. So we will send information in a request body. So from body indicate this information will be in a body. So get information from request body, and we will add a one binding model class, and in this model class we will define one property, create add binding model class. In a VS Code we simply create a file and add extension CS for C#. First we will add a namespace binding model, public class add binding model, and in this class we will add one property role model.binding model. This is namespace, and we will import this namespace in a controller class. I edit class with small letter, class name start with capital letter, and I rename this class name. To add a role in a database, we will use RoleManager service of Microsoft Identity. So first we will inject this service in a controller, and we are using constructor injection for dependency injection in a .NET Core 5. We created variable underscore RoleManager, and we will initialize this variable in a constructor. We have to give a role type to RoleManager class, so I will pass identity role to RoleManager class as a type. I will add RoleManager dependency in a constructor, so whenever .NET Core initialize this controller, .NET Core will pass this dependency. Identity manager or type identity role. And we will assign this value to local variable, which is -RoleManager. .NET Core will pass this dependency whenever initialize this controller. So first we will validate the model. If model is null or model.role is empty, we will return error response, and we will send a message parameters are missing. In a previous video we created a custom response model. We will use this response model in our application, and this response model is easy to handle. And if response model is valid, then we will check this role is exist in a database. If this role is exist in database, then we will return a message role is already exist. To check role in a database, we will use method role exists async, and we will pass role. This method return a boolean value, and this is async method, so we have to add await before this method. Here if role exists in a database, then we will return message role already exists, and we will return response code OK. Second parameter is message, and we will pass message role already exists. If role don't exist in a database, then we will add role in a database. We will create object of identity role, role.name, and we will assign a role model.role, and RoleManager.create async, and we will pass identity role object. This will add a role in a database, and this is async method. And we will check result.succeeded. If true, then we will send a message role added successfully, and if result.succeeded is false, then we will return an error, response code error, and message something went wrong, please try again. So this method has completed, and we have to add attribute HTTP post. So I will copy from here and paste here, and this endpoint name will be add role. So this method has completed. Before test this method, we will see database schema. In a previous video, we configure Microsoft Identity. Microsoft Identity created this table to manage user profile. We will store role in a ASP NET role table. User can have one or many role, So we can store this relationship in a ASP.NET user roles table. To retrieve and store data in this table, we will use Microsoft Identity RoleManager service, and this service will handle all these operations. Now we will try to add role with the help of Postman. Create a copy of existing profile, and now we will replace with add role with login. Route for add role API/user/add role. In a body we will add one property role, and we will assign a value, and first we will add a admin as a role. Admin, this is role. Click on a send button. It stop on a breakpoint, so role is not empty. First it will check role is exist, so in our case it don't exist, and we will create identity role object, and we will save this role in a database. Succeeded is true, and we will send a success message, and here you can see role added successfully. Now we will check this thing in a database, ASP NET role. So here you can see we have added this role in a database successfully. We will add authentication on this method. Start this application in debug mode, and now if I send this API request, and we will get unauthorized error. So you can see 401, and user is a second role. So first we have to obtain token. We can get token from login API call, and copy this token and paste in a authorization, select barrel token and paste here, and if we send, so we added role successfully, and you can check in a database. So here you can see we have a two role, admin and user. Now we will modify register user API call, and we will add one more property which is role. User has to send role in a request body. So we will go to controller, and here we will add a condition, and we will check this role is exist in a database. If role don't exist in a database, then we will send a response role don't exist. This thing will make sure user can add only those roles which are present in database. Otherwise user can send unknown role which are not saved in a database. In our case we have a two role, admin and user. If users send other than these role, we will return error response role don't exist. After this condition, user can be created with admin or user role. Response code is error, and message will be role don't exist. First we will add user, and in a success case we will add a user role. So first we have to fetch user object, user identity object. RoleManager dot add to role async will take two parameters, first app user and role. We can get user object by find by email async. It will return a user object. UserManager dot add to role sync, and here we will pass temp user and model dot role, and both these methods are async. We have to add await. So this method is ready. So now let's test this method. Start this application in debug mode. In a Postman we are on a register user API request, and here we will add one more property which is role, and first we will add admin user, and role will be admin, and full name will be admin, and we will change the email admin@gmail. And click on a send button. So you can see user has been registered, ASP NET user role. In this table you will see user ID and role ID. This table holds the relationship between user and role. Now we will modify get all user method. And we will add one more property in a user DTO class, which is role. We will return role with the user information. Role type will be string, and we will add an entry in a constructor. To get user role, we will use getRoleAsync method of a UserManager class. This method takes user object as a parameter and return all the role of this user. Call a toList on a users, and we will use for each loop on a users, and we will get role one by one for each var user in users, and we will replace x with user. We will create a list of user DTO class, and we will name it all user DTO. In this list we will store user DTO object all user DTO dot add, and we will pass user DTO object. Now we will get role. This method is async. We have to add await and UserManager dot get roles async, and we pass user object. This will return all the roles. Now we are going with one user will have one role, so we will call first or default method. It return first object from the list, and we will pass this role in a user DTO constructor, and we use this user DTO class in login method. So we return a user information when user logged in. I will copy this line and paste here. Here I will pass app user object and pass a role in a user DTO constructor. Now we are done. Now we will test, run the application in debug mode. Debug mode is not compulsory. You can run the application with .NET run command in a command prompt. Now we are on a Postman, and we will test get all user API method. And if we see the response, there is no role property in our response. So let's check the code. And if we see all user DTO, we didn't pass all user DTO. We passed user list. That's why we didn't see role property. Start the application in a debug mode, and we will test again. Click on the send button. So this time we will have a role property in our response. You can see we have a role type is admin. Some user don't have a role because they were added before the role functionality. Now we will add one more method, getUser. This method will return the list of users that have role type user. Get all user will return all the users that have role type user and admin, and this method will return only user that have role type user. For each loop we will add a condition. If role is equal to user, then add object in the list, otherwise don't add an object in the list. So we will not add a else condition, because we will only add object if condition is met. So we will have a list of users that have role type user. Run the application. We will test this method on a Postman, and we will create a copy of get all user. So we will remove all from this. Get user is a private call, so first we have to get token from login API. Copy this token, and we will paste in authorization. Authorization type should be barrel token. Click on the send button, and you will see data set is empty because we didn't add any user with the role type user. So now we will add a user with the role type user, and we will give full name user. We will change the email user@gmail. So now we have added a user with the role type user. If we send again, then you can see we get a one record, role type is user. We are using token based authentication. We need to add role in token. So whenever user try to access any method that have role based authorization, .NET Core will validate this role from token. If token has that role which is mentioned on a method, then .NET Core will grant permission on that method. If token don't have that role, .NET Core will not allow permission on that method. You can see on image, in order to access GetUserList token must have role type admin. In this method we generate token. Here we will add a role in a token and we will use claim type.role and we will pass role value. Import namespace system.security.claims claim type.role. We will pass role value. We will add one more argument, role. Here we will pass role. We call this method from login method, so we have to pass role parameter from login method. Here we will pass role as a parameter. So whenever user call this API, and we will add role in a token and we will return this token in a response. Now we will add role-based authorization checks. These are declarative. Simply we have to specify the role in authorized attribute. We can add authorized attribute on a method or on a class. In this video we will see both examples. We will add authorized attribute on a class level and on a method level. Now we are adding role in our authorized attribute. We have a two role, one is admin and second is user. Start this application and we will test this functionality. First we will get admin token and copy this email. This user has a role type admin and paste here and get token from login. Copy this token. First we will decode this token using JWT Token website. And this website can decode your token. So here you can see role type is admin. Get all user required role type admin and we have a token with a role type admin. And you can see we can successfully fetch data from API. Now we will test role type user and we will get first token. So now we have a token with role type user and we will decode this token and you can see role type is user. Get user require role type user and you can see we can get data from get user method. And if you use this token on get all user, I'm using this token on a get all user. You can see I receive status code 403 forbidden, so I cannot access this method with this token. We will integrate this API in Angular project. So to register a user we need a roles, so we will create one more method that will return all the role from database. We will modify this method and this method is a copy of get user. We will remove the irrelevant thing from this method. After removing the irrelevant things, so RoleManager.roles will get the role from database and I'm using here .select because I only need role name. Then I call the toList method. This method has completed. Now we will implement role-based authorization in Angular. We will integrate these role-based authorization API in an Angular project. In our previous video we created this Angular project. This project is running now. On a register page we will show the roles, so user can select the role whenever user wants to add a new user. We will use radio button for this because user can have only one role. We are using Bootstrap in this project. I will copy UI code from Bootstrap. I'm on a Bootstrap website. Search check and radios. You can see a different example of radio button and checkbox. I will copy this one. We will add roles below to password field, so we will add a row div below to password div. Here I will add row div below to password row div and margin bottom 3. We are following this margin in every row div. Column sm2, we are using this breakpoint in every column. and I will paste this label. I will change to role, save the changes, and you can see we have a role row. Now we will get roles from server and we will display here. In a service, we will create a method that will fetch role from database using API. We will use existing method and we will modify this method. Method name will be getAllRole. We will copy endpoint name from here, getRoles, and paste here. So now we will create a model class for role. File name role.ts. I have created role model class that have two property. One is role, in which we will store role name. In a selected property, we will store the selection status of a role, and we will update this method. Replace user with role class. So we will return list from this method because we will receive list from server. We will import this class in this service. In our role list.push, we are adding role object. So we have to modify constructor, and this constructor will take two parameter. One is role and second is selected value. We will make second argument optional and set default value false. Assign the argument value to class variables. We will receive list of role from server. No object in the response, just string array, and initially role will be unselected, so we will not pass true value to each selected. We will call the service method in a component. We will create a method with name getAllRoles, and in this method we will call the service method. When we receive response from server, first pipe operator will invoke, and at the end subscribe method will invoke. So in a subscribe method, we will have a role list. We will assign this list to local list, and we will use this list in ng-for loop. Here we will define array of role, public roles. This is a role type array. And we will import the role in the class. Assign the value which we receive from server. We will call this method from ng-onIt lifecycle event of a component. So whenever this page load, this method will be invoked. To display the list on a UI, we will use ng-for. ng-for let role of roles. Role will represent the single object of roles. Here we will use role.role, and we know role is a property in our role class. And we will bind the check property with isSelected. So whenever isSelected is true, then this radio button will be selected. ng-for has an index property that holds the current index value, and we will use this index property for unique name, NID. And if ID and 4 is same, then whenever user click on a label, then this radio button will be selected. Label 4 attribute is bind with radio button. Now let's test this thing, and if I click on a label, then this radio button will be selected. Here you can see we have bug here. Radio button will be selected one at a time in a group. User can select admin or user. This is due to different name. We gave a different name to radio button. We should give a same name to all radio button that represent role. Now test this thing. Now they are working fine. Before they are working as a checkbox. We will see each selected property working fine before send request on a server. We will use change event on our radio button. Whenever status change, this event will be triggered. And we will pass role name. Here we will create that method. This dot roles dot for each loop. And here we will add a condition. If role is equal, then we will set the status is selected to true. In else case, we will set is selected value false, because one value will be selected at a time. Now we will test this thing. If I click on a login button, then you can see admin is true and admin is false and user is true. If I check again admin, and admin is true and user is false. So they are working fine, and I will remove return from here. I will add one more property, which is role in a register user API request body. Here you can see, and I will pass role from component. We can get the selected role because we have a property is selected in our role object. So whenever user select any role, we set this property true. We will use filter function on a role array, and we will pass condition filter array on is selected property. It will return the array that have is selected true. We will take first object from the filter list. Dot role will have the title of the role. Let's test this functionality, and we try to register a user with role. First we will add admin, and we will select the role admin and click on a login button. So program stopped on a breakpoint. Here we will see that role is admin, and I will click on a continue. One user has been registered in a database with role. You can see response in a log window. So whenever we register a user, we will reset this form so user can know user has been registered in database. In a subscribe method, we will reset the full name, email and password, and we will reset the role. Dot set value, we will pass empty string. And I will create the copy of this line. This dot role, and for each loop I will assign false value to all is selected. So whenever user register a new user, this form will reset. Let's test this thing, and now I will add a new user, admin3, and will give some email, and role is admin. Click on a login. So you can see this form has reset. Now I will try to log in with admin3. We can fetch the list of user, and if I see the response, and you can see We have a role admin. Now we will display the role on a screen. On a user management, we will add one more column. Heading will be role, and here user.role. We have to add one more property in a user class, which is role. I will create one property role, and I will add an entry in a constructor. I will have to pass role here in a constructor. I will refresh this page and you can see we have a role. I will increase the column size. Refresh the page and you can see now UI is looking good. I will add one more page to show that role provides certain level of access restriction. On all user management page, I will show all the users that have role type user and admin. On user management page, I will show only that user that have role type user. User with role type admin can access all user management page. That user can see all the user, and user with a role type user can see only user that have role type user. I will use existing code from user management page. Both page will have same functionality, only one difference, they will call different API. I will copy HTML file code and TS file code. And here we will see import error. Click on add all missing imports. VS Code will add all missing imports. We will add one more method in our service that will fetch all the user list. So I will use existing code and I will copy this get all user code and change the name of this method get user list. So I will change the name of this API get user list, and copy this and change the method name. And don't forget to change the URL. From user management page, we will call GetUserList function because we will display only that user that have role type user. In app component, in a navigation bar, we will add one navigation link. This will be all user, and we will remove the management word, and title of this navigation will be users. Now we will add a route in app routing module. All user management, and we will map the component all user management. Copy this path, go to app component, and here we will add router link. So this will be the path all user management. So whenever user click on all user, we will open this path. Here don't forget to add comma between these route. Now let's test. So no error. On successful login, we will check the role, and if role is admin, then we will redirect to all user page, and if role is user, then we will redirect to user page. And we know in a subscriber, data object is a type of response model, and in a response model we have dataset. From login API, we assign the user object to dataset, so we can take dataset as a user. We have to import user class. So now we will get IntelliSense, and we can add condition user.role equal to admin, then redirect to all user management page. In else condition we will redirect to user management page. So we will add else part, this router navigate, and we pass the path. So now test this thing, and if I log in with admin, you can see I redirect to all user management page. If I click on user, then you will see I will get forbid error. Somehow all user is not working, and here I forgot to add T. So now test again, and if I click on all user, it's working fine, both are working fine, but I cannot see user data. Now I will log in with the user that I have a role type user. I redirect it to user page. So we have only one user, and if I click on all user, I cannot see all user data. In this video we will see two approach to protect the link if user don't have a access on it. First, we will disable the link, but link will be there, and second, we will hide the link. First, we will disable the link, and I will create a property of user that will return a user from local storage. We will use user information in multiple places. That's why we created a property. Local storage return a string, so we pass this string into object, and we use json.parse. We will create two property. One is admin. It will return true when user type is admin. This dot user dot role and equal admin. When role is equal to admin, it will return true, else false. And second property that we will create, which is user. So when role is equal to user, then this property will return true, else false. We will create CSS class a.disable, and here we will define pointer event none, cursor not allowed. This class will disable the anchor tag. So here we will apply class.disable and equal, and here we will pass condition is user. Whenever user is true, this disable class will apply on this hyperlink or anchor tag. So here you can see I cannot click on this link, but I can click on user link. So here you can see I cannot click on it, and I cannot trigger an event. If we add opacity, then this link will look like disabled link. Now it's look like disabled link. So if I log in with admin and this link is enabled, all user is enabled, mostly admin have access on all the link on all the resources, so we will allow access on user API call. We can add multiple role on one method, like in our case GetUserList. User and admin can access this method. A comma separator value user comma admin. Now user and admin can access this method. Log out and log in. So whenever you restart the application, it take time. So you can see all user. If I click on user, I can access the user list with role admin. So I can access both link, both resources. Now we will discuss second approach, in which we hide the link, and we will use ngIf, add condition in ngIf, and is user we will use not operator with it. log out and log in, you can see know all user if user has a role type user. Log in with admin and you can see we have all user and user link. In this video we implemented role-based authorization in .NET Core 5 and we implemented in Angular project. In this video we implemented these two highlighted role check. In order to access first method, user with role type administrator can access this method, and for second method, user with role type HR manager or user with role type finance can access this method. In the next video we will implement user with multiple roles and we will implement remaining roles check. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.